with that. Okay, I think we can start. Um, so for my first subject, I chose Silicon Dreams. It's a game made by Clockwork Bird Studio from Vienna. Yeah, from my friends. They said like, okay, we let you to talk about our UI. So yeah, thank you for trust. And today I would like to talk with you about that case, that UI and UX based on this case study. So, Silicon Dreams is a game inspired by Blade Runner. I think most of you saw Blade Runner, or at least hear it, or maybe even read the book. So you had that motive or like that theme of testing if somebody is android or human. And in this game, we are not doing exactly that, but we also having conversation and interviews with androids that were reported that something is wrong with them, that they behave weirdly, and our goal is to figure it out what is wrong with the android, and then we can make a decision what we will do with the android. We are also android, so we are working for the company, so we also need to be careful what we will do with the androids, if we will say truth about their state, or maybe we would like to help them. It's a bit also inspired by Papers, Please. So what is important for us is to know that it's a narrative text heavy game. There is not that many screens, or the action also is not the most important part of the game. um, so we will choose dialogue options. We will analyze emotions on the radar. I will show shortly, and yeah, and that's mostly it. Or that's like main experience we will have in the game. Um, so that's the first thing you see in the game, or it's like the main menu, and the format of my presentation will be that I will show the real screen. I will make it the gray version of it, like you can see here. um, I will say what could be done better. I will make my proposition, and then we will summarize each step. So here, as you see, if you make something, if you will remove the colors and textures and all that glitter, and you make it gray, you can see clearly the shape of the object and how it's interacting with all the other elements in the screen. And first thing you probably can easily notice here is that um, the point of view or the perspective here is a bit distorted, and it looks like that screen is huge, and we as a user or player are super tiny. Um, Maybe it could be interesting if also the composition of the whole screen would support this idea, but the composition is suggesting that this normal screen on the desk, and when we are sitting next to the desk, we do not see the screen from that perspective. So my proposition for that is change the perspective, that it's less distorted, that is also easier to read elements on the screen, because we need to remember this is the main menu. So we will need to read and make decisions using this place. So that's like the sample how I will approach yeah, the problem. So um we have problem of perspective. It's harder to read and also harder to understand the context, and we probably should fix it, unless the artistic vision has some really good argument about that. um, Also, that's something on the side, but also if you look at the background, that wall, there is a lot of texture, a lot of detail going on. And when you look at the basic object there, or the menu object, it's also really flat without texture. So there is a bit of inconsistency, and the texture and detail in the background is attracting much more our eye, which is not really supporting the goal of the screen here, because we want to be focused on the main menu, but it's the detail. And I will go further with it. That's the first, honestly, that's the first thing you see. So you're entering the game, and there is like a pop-up about, yeah, would you like to join our newsletter, I believe. Yeah. And if we look at just the clear shapes, how they are interacting with each other, um, we already see some things we could easily fix and make it that experience a bit better. So first of all, um, there is no safe space around the text and illustration or the logo of the company or studio. Which makes it much harder to focus on the content inside the frame. It's good that we have one background, one region, like one context for all of it, but it's a bit too little, and it's really easily we can be easily distracted by other elements, and it's not that easy to cut it from rest of it. Another thing, those edges. If you look at this edge, which I marked with the red circle, you see that the button is like aiming in the on to the edge of the whole pop-up of the whole frame, and it's making a really strong visual conflict or tension, and that attracts also our eye to this place. If you like, you look at it, it's probably first or one of the first place where you will look, because you have the most like details, a lot of details, and also like that contrast, etc., etc. It's not very good, because what we want to focus on is like a text inside. So my proposition would be to make more bigger safe space around that. Move everything more into the center. Like the layout of the text and buttons is totally fine. Probably the text on the buttons should be a bit smaller, that it's much easier to understand, and we don't need to read that long. But if we are just looking at the layout, um, that is much safer to go, and we can be 100% sure that somebody will be able to read it, that we have enough space for maybe a bit bigger text if somebody needs to have it. Yeah, so that's our summary. That's what we had at the beginning. A lot of fights with yeah, like the shapes, they are fighting with each other. What is more important, also the placement of the pop-up. Yeah, it's in the edge, and we could make it much more quiet, and it's much easier to read. And we are finally getting to the main dish. So that's the main screen of the game. Like that's the screen our user or our player will look most of the time. So what we have here, we have yeah, just analyze it a bit, just think what you really see there. So first, what we see is the Android, the room where Android is kept. Next thing is that screen we already know from previous shot. That's like the emotion radar, so we can see what Android feels right now. On the right, you see tablet, and the tablet is the most important part of the whole game, because that's the place where you get the most information. That's the place where you are making your decisions. So that's the crucial element of the whole game and experience. That should be really polished. And we also have two other elements, like a switch on the left, and the printer on the bottom left. And I will start with the most crucial elements, so with the tablet. First of all, what is a bit annoying, or what could be annoying, it's the angle, how we see the tablet. So I assume that what was the goal here, it's to imitate that we are holding the tablet ourselves. So we are just holding it, it's like our workspace, and that's our main tool during the work. um, so if you imagine that you are holding the tablet right now, for example, um, you will see that it's not that the angle is not that far away from you. It's more straight to you, more straight to your eyes. It's much closer, because it's important. The whole area on the bottom is unimportant. Nothing is happening there. We can easily make it that the tablet is much closer and more straight to our eyes. That also will make much easier read text much easier to read, because the angle will be smaller, and always when you have a text, the easiest way to read the text is just totally straight. um, and if we have an angle, it's harder and harder. mm, yeah, the other thing, it's like the fonts and how they are used to communicate informations to the user. Um, so first of all, I don't know if you noticed, but that is a kind of dialogue element, so you can choose what you will say. Um, and I will, in a moment, I will show you how I would solve the problem with the fonts and text and layout, that it's more readable what it is. Um, Also, that's also detail, but maybe also it's good to think about stuff like that. So in the left upper corner of the tablet, you see that symbol. That's as you if you look at the logo of the game, that's the logo of the company you're working for, which is nice detail on that device. It tells you that everything here, yeah, the company owns this, and they own you as well. But probably that detail, which is not interactive, could be put on the other part of the tablet, which is not going interaction with the screen where you see the Android. uh, why we need the destruction there? I think it's not needed. So that's one of the way to solve it. Um, so what I did here is I make it much closer. The angle is smaller, so the text is much straight. We could it completely straight, but I didn't want it to go too far from the vision of the creators. And next thing, the tabs on top of the tablet are bigger, so we also can more easily notice that that what is written there, and that this tab is chosen. Formatting of the text. So we have a title we had before, as that stays the same. The placing is different. Um, but also I used italic italic type of the font, because usually in games, things which are not chosen but you can do something with them, or the specific type of text which is unusual, usually use it's shown in italic type. um, the option which is currently chosen is it's more bright. The color of the font is brighter, so our attention is much easier focused on it. And also we have like graphical indicator, or we are marking which option is chosen. So if you look at those two screenshots, and if you compare it, um, on the second one, for sure, what is easier, it's to notice that probably I should choose something there, and um, that what is chosen right now, and we have more space to display text, and it's a bit easier to read because of the angle. Okay, more about tablet. Give me a minute. I need to close the window because it's super cold. I don't know if it's also cold in your place, but it's June and it's freaking cold in Vienna. It's raining all day long. So, um, that screen you see right now, it's a screen like it's after you make some mission, you're going to rest and you see the summary of your task, so how you perform. um so first thing, which probably could be fixed, is the placing of the tablet itself. So we have really geometrical composition here. Everything is really like symmetrical. We have a lot of geometrical 90 degree angles, etc., etc. And the main thing, which is a tablet, it's not really in the center. And I don't really think there's any good reason to put it like that. Um, that's maybe detail, but those kind of things make it much easier to interact with the whole thing, and we are not losing time. Our mind doesn't focus on it. Why it is like that? Also because probably it wouldn't be that a big problem, but because of the window in the background, we have really bright element on the left, which makes all the screen a bit asymmetrical. And there is our attention is in that bright space in the window, not really in the tablet, because tablet is also pretty dark. So probably if we would put it in the center, and the brightness we would take a bit of brightness from that place, probably we could change the whole composition somehow. But yeah, that's maybe not the most important part of it. Well, I would like to focus on the fonts and the layout. I mean, not what kind of font would look best, because uh, we can discuss it with like for hours, but maybe something more basic. Um, for now, what we see here, that the layout of the text is not really aligning with tabs up. So it's not that easy to see what kind of area on the tablet is dedicated to the text, which is next something we could just make it easier to our brain to interpret it in the glance. And that probably it's not that important, but it makes it just look less attractive when it's not aligning well. So how I would improve this screen, or this tab in the tablet, is like, first of all, I would use different type of font for who sent it to whom and what is the subject. It's something we know from emails. We are receiving stuff like that every day, yes. And also if we are using different type of font for that, and also the brightness is lower, because it's not the most important thing in the game. Why? Because most likely we will get the same from two, and maybe subject can be something different. But what is most important part of the email here, it's just the email, what's inside. So that's why that's brighter, and because we should focus on that element here. And also I'd add a scroll bar, because maybe the whole text maybe will be much longer. So we would like to navigate through it and see where we are in the text, and how much more text is there. Next, yeah. So those the elements I changed. Next thing, the report. So report, in the end of the game, you need to answer the questions like what you think about Android. There's like different kinds of questions, and the report is showing us what the company thinks about our report. If they like it or not, will they kick us out from the job or not? So that's the goal of this screen. We want to know what was the question, how we answered, and what company thinks about that. So the first issue I see that the questions and answers are not separate. They are combined together, which is not that easy to notice. Okay, where the question ends and where is my answer. Next thing, we don't have numbers, so we don't know what kind of context is dedicated for one question, because it could be also just a text where we don't have any really clear information which line starts the new context of new question. Also the element at the bottom, it's the brightest. You can see it here, and it's really attracting attention. And it's just another question which is the same like all the other. So why it is underlined? What is good here, at least, that the company ranking, that's not reward, but it's a punishment we got. It's in italic, so it gives us information that that is some kind of different text, has different purpose. So how I would approach this problem? First of all, I would add title, what it is, report evaluation. So it's evaluation of our report. It will help to find the context. Next thing, numbers to the questions. It will make it much easier to navigate it through and to understand, okay, that was this question, that is that question. Answers are below. It's really fast. You can really quickly see, okay, what was the answer for this question. And notes, I add this note thing that we see what kind of feedback we got. So it's much easier to notice what is the question, what is the answer, and what is the feedback. Moreover, the consequence we got is the brightest, and it's also connected to the feedback because it's a part of the feedback. So we can easily, if we just screen through the report, we see, oh, okay, so we get minus point here, even if we don't want to read all of it. That we will notice. And also the scroll bar. So those are the elements I was focusing on here. And last element of the tablet, it's a result. So that screen or that tab is saying to us how high in the company ranking we are. And then we have like that enter sleep mode, just to finish this phase and go to the other quest. um yeah, generally this one is not too bad. We have like the title, we have really big information which is the most important for us, and we have also bright and pretty big button on the bottom, and it's really good placement, I think. But I think we could make it a bit more exciting, because what we want to have here is like, okay, so it's like a summary of everything you've done so far in the game. Of course, you could make it much more nicer. You could make it nicer and much more exciting than I did here. But this solution let us like show to the player that you can be something better, or you can have a worse grade. So it's like putting us really in the hierarchy. Okay, so you're here in this place in the hierarchy. That kind of feeling I want to achieve. But I think you could make it nicer, maybe with some graphics. And I just put that button in the middle because I think it looks better, like just nicer in the composition. But that's something which we didn't need it to change. Yeah, those are the elements I was working on. Okay, so here mostly what we were talking about is like the type of fonts. just the formatting of the text, layout, and brightness. And also you can easily notice on those two screens that gave a text different background to than the edges of the tablet, which are where we don't have any information. um so that it's also easier to notice where are the important things for us. Okay, and now I will talk about um, interaction of the elements in the main screen, how it looks. So again, we are in the main screen, and if we just put it in the shape, the gray shape, like mode, or we will just extract those shapes there, um, we see exactly how those elements are interacting and the placement, how it goes. So how the game starts, what's the flow of the user, what kind of elements they will be interested first is the tablet, because we need to choose our dialogue. So we are entering the situation, we see the subject, we see our tablet, and we should choose something. We are choosing something, and then we are going and seeing what is the response of the android, so how he or she is responding. We can also then look at the android, how or she is behaving, what they are doing, and on that emotional radar. Usually emotional radar, if something changed, there is like nice animation, which is nice, which is good, because then your attention is attracted really easily to this place. And then after analyzing those elements, we can also make a decision if, for example, in the context of the emotions, there is something bad going on, the android is stressed out, angry, sad, I don't know, we can release their wrist, so they are like in the handcuffs, they can't move really nicely. And if you want to gain the trust of the android, you can just release their hands, that they feel like, oh, you are my friend now, okay. So that's the switch is doing exactly this. And the last element, if we will finish all the interrogation or the asking questions, etc., we can print the report, and that is and also like we see the whole, I think there's also like history of all of the dialogue, but I'm not so sure. But there's like the last element, you're clicking that you're ready to print your report. Okay, so how does it look, how that highways, how they are cutting each other, how they are, what they need to go through to reach the point. So we see that there are a couple of things which are overlaying, and also like how long sometimes we need to go with our eyes or mouse to click something. um, Also, if we will analyze the places where we have some things we can go interact with, so click, yeah, they're on the edges of the screen, so they are not in the center of the screen. They are just on a lot on the left side, where we have tablet, and two things on the right side, really on the corners of the screen, which is it's not itself bad that it's something in the corners of the screens, especially because yeah, mouse can go further than the edge, but it's really far apart from the main interaction, our playground. Okay, so that's one of the proposition I came up, how we could make it a bit nicer and more harmonious. Of course, you could do it in many different ways. It's not like, okay, that's is the best, and uh, that is one of the solution you can approach. And probably also you would need to test it a bit, how it works for different kind of content you have in the game, because the game is of course not released yet, it's not finished. That's why I also think that maybe this analyze will help guys to improve some elements. So my idea for that is, first, so what we see is that the tablet is even closer, and it's even easier to read what is what is displayed there. We are choosing our dialogue option, and we are making not that long run to what the Android said. Also, I added this typical bubble speech. I don't know, triangle. I don't know if there is any, like, proper name for that, but it helps to understand that this is a speech bubble. So that is what Android said. And another thing is that it's aiming in the character who said that. Here it's not that important because we have always one character, but maybe, I don't know, maybe in future in the game they would like to have more, but generally it's easier to understand that that is a bubble speech just with this one element. Also, what is important, that when we are going from text, we are not passing through any important image we should interpret. We are just going through some backgrounds elements, nothing interesting going on there, and we are going from text to text, which is also easier for our brain to digest, because we don't need to switch between and after reading his or her line, we can look at the guy, we can go to our emotional radar, what is going there, we can analyze those three things, go in the circle there, and then we can make a decision, for example, if we want to release his hands or not. And because the releasing hands is in the context of the emotions, and it's really it has impact of the emotions, and it's connected to this element of the game. um, I decided to put it closer to each other, that we have also shorter way. Okay, we see that is happening. Oh my God, he's super angry, or he's super sad, or super upset. He doesn't trust us. We can't get any information out of him. It's too much stress for him. So I will decide to release his hands, and I can do it. I can do it with the shorter way. And last element, with the printer and with the report, that we are printing our report, and that's the end of the quest. I put it in this place because it's also associated with the X button. That's place where usually that's, or maybe like the corner where usually we have like the X button that we are closing some window. It could be also in the lower left corner to continue. However, we have a really big tablet there, and I didn't want it to take space for the tablet because we have a lot of text and a lot of important like interactions there. So I just put it there. So if we look at the whole, going through the screen, we see that there is some cycle, there is some continuous movement from one element to another. And if we look at the interactive elements, they are on the left side, and the read-only elements are oh no, the interactive elements are on the right side, and the read-only are on the left side. So we have also this separation. We don't need to move our mouse through the whole screen, so that it also should be easier to navigate. So yeah, so that's what we had before. So you see that the interactive areas are separated, and in between we have read-only areas. Also, you see that the way of the user of analyzing or interacting with elements, they sometimes are they are not that fluent, sometimes there are going some conflict. We are going through reading the text to looking at the android and to read another text. And in my solution, which probably could be a bit better with the placing the elements, but we don't have that much of conflicts. We can reach important elements independently. And also interactive elements are on one side and read only on the other side, because the game is not the action game, it's narrative game. um Probably it's good to just let the people to focus not on the moving the mouse that much, but more on the what they are reading and what kind of decision they need to make. So that's the last slide. So we made it in like 35 minutes, which is not that bad. So I don't know if you would like to give me some feedback, or you have some questions on this work, or I don't know, you want to share something with me, you can do it now. Also, I can, if you can now think about if you want to share or write something in the chat. I will give you some time to get to collect your courage. I also wanted to say that I'm sometimes making the art streams, and sometimes also I'm streaming games I'm playing. So if you're also interested in that, you can visit my profile later. Okay, you're writing something. That's great. Um, Honestly, I don't know. I was not developing the game. The question is if it's, yeah, it's made in Unity. I think so. But you would need to ask the Clockwork Beard guys. In my post in the Twitter, you have like the link to their profile, so you can ask them. Um, isn't the speech bubble a read-only element? Yeah, yeah, it is. It is read-only element. That's why it's on the blue side. And yeah, it's also above. It's farther from other elements we can interact with in my solution. And how it looks in the game. Yeah, it's also in the blue area. We can't do. We can't interact with it. It's just changing after we choose some direct option. So, how many indie game devs I we have there? I don't know if you think that that kind of analysis would be useful for you in the future. If you have your game and you would like me to take a look and give you some suggestions, that you also can contact me, because yeah, I'm also learning through it, so that would be also super cool. Yeah, I'm really happy that we made it, honestly, and that you were here with me. You're listening. What kind of thoughts I have about that, because I think like the game and the idea of the game and the promise is really good. It's really exciting. I would like to, interrogate androids and think, okay, what kind of inner life and conflicts AI can have, especially because when you're working in the game dev, you're also creating AI and having like the fantasy about, yeah, that they are maybe real, um that it's the real conscious. It's really interesting. So yeah, I think like the idea is really good, but I think the UI could be much nicer, and then the game also would feel much better, even if yeah, it's not the part of the main idea. Yeah, sure. Why you're not working anymore? I know if you're working also in some IT, that probably also have a lot of you need to deal with UI. Yeah, that's great if you're making games as a hobby. I don't know, after hours. Yeah, I think it's really good to know some basics about the UI because yeah, it will make your game look much more professional. Oh, okay. So are you programmer or artist, or what are you doing there? What is your field of focus? Yeah, okay, that's probably the best what you can do. I mean, for the money and prestige and like safety, you know. Yeah, so if you are programming and you have some design background, that also makes it much easier for you to work with designers to understand their problems, and also probably to, yeah, if you in future in your work you will design some tools for your designers, that also you can think about how it looks and how they can maybe easier interact with it. So yeah. So once again, if you would like to check out the project, the game is not released yet, but the guys are working on it hard. It's a Silicon Dreams, and yeah, in my Twitter, you have a link to, or like I marked them so you can check out the studio where I learn all of the, yeah, I'm in the process generally. Yeah, that's a bit funny because my background is psychology and art, and it makes me super attractive on LinkedIn for everybody who wants to have a UX or UI designers, because knowledge about the human perception and also about the composition and all of that, it's needed for that work. I never choose it. I was sometimes doing that kind of expertise for mobile games as a freelancer, but I never was thinking about doing it like more for a full time. And right now in my work I see that we have really UI heavy game we are working on, and yeah, I think it's also very useful for my daily work, but I also was thinking that maybe, maybe in future, yeah, I could help with it with my unique background for to yeah, to game dev, especially small studios. So where I learned it, yeah, I just answered. I mean, yeah, like first of all, because I have a lot of psychological background, it's much easier for me to understand how human cognition look like, so how it works, so what kind of limitation it has, what how memory works, how people learning stuff. And if you have it in the back of your head, it's much easier. And also if you have some basic knowledge about that, how to make it that it looks kind of okay and nice and it's harmonious and the colors are interacting nicely with each other. And also yeah, Siamu is right now helping me with developing my art skills, so that's why I started to make some art streams as well. And yeah, maybe in future I will also transform it in the yeah, in the art for the UI. So okay, we are live. Oh, I'm talking to you, so almost 57 minutes. Awesome. Other question. Uh, yeah. honestly, it really depends what is the context of the where it's displayed, what is the environment, and what is more important is, yeah, what is more important, the more colorful, probably it's not the most important part that is a colorful. What is important is the differences in the brightness. That's the first what our eyes can notice, and the contrast. So if we have really contrasting colors, that will attract our attention. um but I think what is most important is the consistent, and we need to know that all the colors are always signalizing something to us. It's always some information, some symbol, and some information that we are providing. So also, honestly, if you look even at the UI you're interacting with every day, I don't know, Windows, or I don't know, even Facebook, it's usually pretty minimalistic to give the space for the important stuff like informations. In the games, usually we have theme UI, mostly when it's a UI heavy game and we want to give some feeling, some immersion, we want to hide a bit this UI that it's part of the game. So that kind of things we can do. However, we need to be really careful that, too much colors, too much details, too much illustrations are not really like interfering with the usage, or the thing why the button is there and what the button should say to the player. um yeah. So okay, so we are reaching almost an hour. I think it can be also pretty tiring for you to listen all of this. But I'm really happy that you were here with me and you were listening to that. And really, if you have some ideas for me how I can make it nicer, or maybe you have some topic you would like to hear about, you can also check out my each, where I have free cards about game design, about psychology in games. Maybe you would like to hear about those kind of stuff in future. So yeah, so I would say we are finishing. And yeah, check out the Clockwork Bird studio who is working on Silicon Games. Check out other stuff I'm doing, like the tutorials on my Twitter. And yeah, feel free to write to me some feedback you have for me, because it's like the first time I'm doing it, so for sure I can improve a lot. So is there anybody who would like to write to me bye? Because I'm saying bye bye and have a nice weekend. Nobody wants to say bye to me. Thanks. Yeah, okay. So have a nice and exciting weekend. And be oh, now it's a lot of nice things. And yeah, be safe, because of the COVID. I hope everybody are healthy. So bye.